Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the EO Wonder podcast. Today, we have a truly inspiring entrepreneur joining us, Joan Nguyen, the co-founder and CEO of Bumo. Raised by refugee parents where education was a rare privilege, Joan has turned her passion for learning into a successful business venture. She started in her early 20s with just $3,000 and launched MeriEducation, and she grew that to an Inc. 500 company renowned for its SAT and tutoring services. Now, Joan is a mother of two, and she's tackling the challenges of childcare with Bumo, a groundbreaking tech-based platform she founded with Chriselle Lim. Bumo aims to revolutionize the childcare industry by offering accessible, on-demand services to support busy parents. Think of it as an Uber or ClassPass for childcare, providing a lifeline when the unexpected happens, like, your nanny gets sick or there's a sudden school closure. So today we're going to talk about how Bumo is transforming childcare into a reliable employee benefit, how Joan has pivoted her business, and also the important role that women and mothers have in shaping the future of the workplace. So let's get started and learn more about the world of Bumo and the incredible impact it's making on families everywhere. Welcome to the EO Wonder podcast, Joan. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me, Kalika. I'm so excited to be here with you and celebrate all the things that we've been working on.
It is so great. You had just said that you're working on a mother's event right now. I know it's Mother's Day weekend, and you're still juggling it all.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'm hunkered into a phone booth, and there's champagne flowing in the background, moms commingling, which is really exciting. And I always love to see the power of our community. But really excited to be here. A lot of these moms are, of course, users of our on-demand service. I'm a user as well. And so it's always nice to connect parents with sort of common theme.
That is so exciting. I'd love for you to take us back to your origin story. I had mentioned early in the intro that you were raised by refugee parents. I'd love for you, because a lot of times when we have these entrepreneurs on the show, they think that, oh, wow, hugely successful, you've raised millions of dollars to build your company, but there's always a start. Tell us a little bit about your start.
Yeah. So, I guess I could dial it pretty far back because I think about this a lot. And a lot of people ask me why I love entrepreneurship so much. What is it that makes me, I guess, quote unquote, the way I am, right? And it really started with my parents and how I was raised. So my parents are refugees, Vietnamese refugees, and they are what you call, quote unquote, boat people. So they escaped Vietnam on boats, brimming with people. It's very dangerous. People drowned and didn't make it. And they thankfully were able to make it to the United States through different ways. My mom had a sponsor family in Minnesota, which is really great, from a church parish. They sponsored her, and they came here with nothing. And I think, it's funny, like looking back now, I see that as inspirational. But the craziest thing is that when they were raising me, and my mom was a seamstress who worked 17 hours a day, my dad fixed TVs and VCRs, I did not know that we were poor, right? I did not realize it, right? So during that time, there was no sense of poverty. We just felt like we were fine. And I think just seeing that resilience with my parents, they never complained about how much they worked. They never complained about how little money they had. They just made the best of what they had. And that gave me the sense of resilience and adaptability. And then, entrepreneurial, sort of interests ensued after that. When I remember in 8th grade, I wanted to go on, the Washington, D.C. trip, right? All the kids would go, and it was quite expensive at the time for our family. I'd never flown a plane before, and basically sold See's candy to make the money that I needed to make to buy the plane ticket and pay for the Washington, D.C. trip. And actually, since that moment, I've only paid for my own plane tickets. My parents have never paid for a plane ticket for me before, which I'm really proud of, to be able to do that. And then, just that kind of desire continued. 19 years old, I started my first company, MeriEducation, which is a tutoring and test prep company. Bootstrapped that, like you said, with $3,000. And I guess the rest is history with Bumo, which is another sort of phase of my life that I'm happy to go into too. But I think I've over-explained. I'm a chronic over-explainer here. So like every nuance of my life is now divulged to the public.
No, I love that. In EO, we have this thing called the top 5% and the bottom 5%. Looking back, I'd love for you to share, some tops because, whenever people are like on the podcast, they're like, oh, you're so hugely successful, but they never hear the struggles. Do you have like a bottom 5% that you could share?
Oh my gosh, do I? So many. I would say bottom 5%, a lot of it was with Bumo. A lot was with Bumo because to orient everybody listening, Bumo was created throughout various phases of the world that were incredibly challenging, right? First, we were pre-pandemic, we decided to start a brick and mortar business, which is not venture backable, but we somehow raised that was hard in itself. But then the pandemic happened, and so we had to pivot. And so we, navigated this pre-pandemic world, which was already hard for a female entrepreneur trying to raise venture money. And then we went after the pandemic, and then we were met with this once in a lifetime worldwide crisis, right? And then post pandemic too, because a lot of the companies that rode the coattails of the pandemic and that got the tailwinds of the pandemic, which we did because we did pivot from brick and mortar to an online school. Post pandemic, we were faced with the headwinds. A lot of people who faced success, right, during the pandemic, where the world changed again, right? And so that was really hard to see something that was growing so fast during the pandemic, pretty much wind down and self sunset. And then pivoting again during one of the hardest environments for a startup, right? There was a looming, threat of a recession. People didn't know what the economy looked like. The year that we really needed money, we couldn't raise money anymore because nobody was deploying capital. And so the, you know, pandemic was bottom 5% for sure, right? For a moment there. Post-pandemic was also part of the bottom 5% because something that was so exciting wound down. And then this last year, just muscling through 2023 and trying to make really lemonade out of lemons, right? When you didn't even have a lemon tree, pretty much was really, really challenging for us. And there were a lot of dark times. I stopped paying myself, early last year and made that sacrifice. I did a lot of things. Worked really hard. And during this time, when we started Bumo, my kids were, in 2018 when the idea happened, right? My son was 3 months old. He just turned 6. And so my kids now, when you have babies and toddlers, you feel bad for working, you feel bad for not being with them. But when they're older, they can vocalize their feelings. And it's piercing, right? When they say, Mommy, you're working so much. Mommy, I want to spend time with you. Mommy, why can't you go on a play date like all the other mommies? I think the mix of all that was really gutting for me. And so that was probably the bottom of the bottom. I think the pandemic was even as hard as what I've gone through last year.
But I'm sure that you've read that Forbes article that working moms, especially women entrepreneurs, at the end of the day, their kids actually turn out better. I don't have you read that article? I should send that to you. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
I haven't read that article, but I hope that's the case.
Yeah, it is the case because they will follow what you do, not what you say. And so, what you're showing to whoever is around you is the power of your dedication, the power of innovation, and also the power of community.
I mean, I hope so. I'm seeing glimpses of that, right? It waxes and it wanes. So there's like glimpses of, my gosh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm working so hard, and I feel like I am not as present in my child's life as I want to be. But then I also see other things too, where my son told me one day, he's like, I'm going to be the CEO, mommy, of Big Toilets, my new company. And I'm like, okay. And then my daughter, for her Student of the Month poster, she there was like a a part where it says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And she wrote CEO. And so that those glimpses make me happy, right? And so I see that sort of, I guess, like budding entrepreneurial spirit or that admiration for entrepreneurs. And, at school, my kids do say to their friends, like, "Oh, my mom, she is the leader of Bumo." So, so I do
So
see them.
secretly, I know we're always ridden with guilt, but at the end, it all works out.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I hope so. And I think all I could do is explain to my kids, right? And I think that's one thing that I try to do. And I don't know if that's the right thing or the wrong thing, but that's the thing that I'm doing is, I tell them mommy's working very hard because there are people who depend on me, depend on me for childcare, depend on me to grow a company so that they can succeed too, and they will have families too. And if I'm fundraising, I tell them mommy is in these, really important meetings. And during this time, it's going to be really tough for me to take you to school or pick you up. But I'm hoping that after this is done, I can hire more people and they can help mommy, and mommy will have more time with you so that they can understand that there's a process and a logic behind everything I do. Whether they fully understand that, I don't know, right? I don't know. But I think that's one thing that I'm really intentional about is always trying to explain things to them.
And I think what you're also showing them is that you're building a business and not a job. So when you build a business, like you said, you're going to be hiring employees to be able to help with it in the future. And I think that that's a great thing.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's always the intention, right? Always the intention of, trying to showcase, not showcase, that's actually not the right word, but trying to always be intentional about building something as opposed to just slotting yourself into this role, but building the role for yourself of what you want to do and accomplish, right? So yeah, no, that's absolutely right.
So what are you looking forward to with Bumo?
I'm looking forward to a lot. So we might have some exciting announcements soon that I can't divulge yet, but we're looking forward to a lot. We are in the LA market right now. We are planning on expanding to San Francisco and New York and continuing to grow our network. We are partnering with employers. We are partnering with a lot of our benefit partners to complement their benefit offerings by, offering childcare. A lot of our partners do elderly care, some of them do fertility, and we are supplementing their suite of services with what Bumo offers. And so that's what we're excited about is continuing to empower working parents, busy parents, because just because a parent isn't working doesn't mean they're not busy. Stay-at-home parents, that is work. And also just making it so easy for parents to book childcare and have the coverage that they need. Because until Bumo started our on-demand marketplace, there was no platform where you could literally go online when your nanny calls out sick. You just cancel your meeting or you figure it out. You take your meeting with your child there. But for Bumo, you can actually go online and you could book like you're booking, a restaurant reservation or a bike at, a Soul Cycle or something like that. It's really that easy. And I'm excited for more people to use Bumo. I'm excited for us to change the way not only that parents navigate childcare, but also change the way that our childcare providers operate. Because beyond having the joy of serving our parents and our children and our families, there is tremendous joy I have in serving our providers. A lot of them are small business owners, women who are starting their own daycares, and just empowering them with this extra stream of revenue, this extra visibility is really empowering to me, right? To continue this journey of building Bumo as this on-demand marketplace that will expand domestically and globally.
And I also, when I went on your website, you had every single one of your different venues or childcare services have
Mhm.
like a theme. So one of them had
Yeah.
Zen. Like I thought that that was so cool.
Yeah.
And then I think one of them was Mandarin, was it?
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
few Mandarin immersion schools, Russian immersion, forest schools. My kids, I'm signing up for forest school this summer because that's what they want to do, and AI camps. Yeah.
I mean, that's so interesting because you're really helping the parents make a decision. Like I would have been like, oh, I would sign up for the Zen one.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about optionality and flexibility and quality, right? And there's a few other sort of like facets to this like matrix that makes it easy for parents. Parents, you can give them a bunch of options, but if they're not good options, they're not vetted, that's doesn't do them any good, right? Because they could see and not have the hesitation to book. But and their kids might be different. Every kid is so different, right? Every kid has different interests, and so giving them that optionality definitely helps.
And this could have not been done years ago without the technology that we have today, connecting all these venues and childcare providers together. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's definitely the technology is an incredibly important piece. Major shout out to my tech team. They work tirelessly to build something that is so seamless, such a great user experience for our families. But I think honestly, beyond the technology, because there are so many qualified engineers, so many qualified people now who can build anything, right? So that's part of that is definitely very, very important. But I do think layered on top of the technology is Bumo as a brand that was built throughout these phases of the world. So perhaps the bottom 5% became the top 5% in this moment, right? Where it was hard to raise capital to build this brick and mortar space. It was hard to navigate the pandemic. It was hard to navigate the post pandemic. It was hard to navigate this pivot during a really dry spell for venture capital. But throughout the last 5 years, it's been 5+ years now, we have positioned ourselves as a brand that parents trust. That is the company. Bumo is the company that decided to reimagine childcare by being the first ever co-working space with on-site licensed childcare with a 2,000 person wait list. Bumo was there when all the kids were home and couldn't go to school and gave them quality education that parents trusted. And now Bumo is here again, expanding the reach of our childcare services by partnering with great providers and camps and programs for parents. So throughout this time, I would hope we're not perfect at all. And I never want to present Bumo as this perfect solution for anything. But I know that any parent who's followed us throughout this time knows that we try damn hard, right, to do the best we can and to build that trust with our parents because we're not just two dudes from, with a Harvard MBA trying to build a childcare company. We are moms, we are mothers, we are builders, we are dreamers, we are workers, we are sacrificers, right? um, Trying to reimagine this antiquated space that nobody cared to really reimagine. And so I think throughout the years that is what has made Bumo is all the things that we've been through, our community that's followed us through thick and thin. So it's really a great homage to all of the people who've believed in us this entire time.
You know, one of my friends who owns this huge makeup line, really successful,
Yeah.
also bootstrapped it. And she said the same thing. She's like, do you know there's these two guys that want to do makeup, Harvard, MBA, and they're getting into space, they're getting funding.
Yeah,
And I'm thinking, what do you know about makeup? I mean, it's okay. Some guys wear makeup, but like, what do you know about makeup? And you, as a mom, as a wife and mother, you understand the challenges because it is often put on our shoulders. Talk a little bit about
totally.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with a rough statistic, right? Over 90% of our account holders are mothers, right? And some of them are executives, some of them are stay-at-home mothers, some of them are lawyers, doctors. And that is very telling because the onus of childcare typically falls on the mother. And that was really apparent to me. I remember I was doing an accelerator pitch. I won't say for which accelerator, but it was for It's supposed to be for women, right? A diversity accelerator for women. Of course, I pitched with a panel of 10 men. So I can't make this up, right? It was 10 men, and I was there pitching my heart out, talking about, how, on-demand childcare is so important. This is something that people need. And one of the men raised his hands and he's like, I don't think I would ever use this. I can't imagine dropping off my child at a random location that I've never used before. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? If my nanny called out sick today, you better bet I will book on-demand childcare and I would not miss this pitch today. Would you? And the reason being that there's that disconnect, right? That sort of like the synapses are not synapsing because they don't deal with the childcare. They probably have another partner who deals with the childcare. So it's like, yeah, sure. If like my child can't go to school because school's closed for in-service day or the nanny is sick, I don't have to deal with it. I can still have all of my meetings, go to work, do the thing that I'm supposed to do. But I have a partner who's going to probably, you know, cancel her meetings, stay at home, work from home, figure out, the Rolodex of babysitters, right? And that's the mental load of figuring out childcare is so much. And so, as a mom and as a mom of young kids who feels this pain point so much, even as my kids are older, because school's closed for the next 2.5 months. So I had to figure out what to do. Well, I actually know what to do. I'm booking Bumo, but I think it's so important, for me as a mother to kind of think through this problem because I feel it and I see it and I think because the venture world, right, is so dominated by men who don't understand this problem. Again, 2% of venture funding goes to women, right, and much probably less to AIPI women. They don't this problem is not captured, right? It's not talked about. And so I think it's important as mothers and entrepreneurs for us to think through the problems that impact us because that has a ripple effect not only on our upward mobility, our empowerment, right, as leaders, as investors, as voices of the future, but it also impacts future generations for our children. I hope my daughter can just book on-demand childcare if she decides to have children. She's told me though, I don't want kids, mom. I'm like, okay, more power to you. You do what you want to do, Reagan. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a very long sort of explanation. And, at this point, I have forgotten the questions. I hope I've answered it in some form. But yeah, I mean, building for the people that you want to solve the problem for and being that person, that demographic is so important. And I think that has given me an incredible edge and Chriselle an incredible edge to in building Bumo.
It's really interesting because the person who was listening to your pitch wasn't your target audience. And so sometimes when investors, they actually have to, put themselves in the person's shoes, the target audience shoes, and sometimes
Right.
they can't really imagine that. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've pitched men and I mean, I should have a log of the questions they ask me because they are outrageous. I'm just like, you really don't get it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I was in its entrepreneur workshop and they had mentioned, they said, imagine the situation, you're in Walmart and some rich person comes to the front, just like, can you please show me where, like, I can't find anything. Can you please show me wherever, so and the toilet paper is? And the person at the front is just like, sorry, I can't.
Mhm.
And what would the CEO of Walmart say?
I don't know. I mean,
They said, good, get
yeah.
out. You're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
my target audience.
yeah.
You're not my target audience.
Yeah.
We don't want that type of person shopping there. We want someone else. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people do too, is like they just don't know who their target audience is. And it's very clear that who your target audience is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's, you're absolutely right. I mean, knowing your target audience is like, you can learn your target audience if you're not your target audience, but you just save so much time and energy and mental gymnastics, right? When you are that person.
So you mentioned a little bit about branding. I own a branding agency. So where did the name Bumo come from?
Yeah, so we've had a long history of names. So when we first started, we were Flo, FLO, what bad name. And then we were Park, PARC, and also not a great name. And then Carcel and I we just needed to figure out a name, right? And finally, I'm going to butcher this, but she said, okay, Pumo means parent in Korean, right? I totally, for all the Korean listeners, I'm so sorry. I'm not Korean. I'm trying my best, but it means parent in Korean. So we went with that. And then we checked it wasn't trademarked or anything. And we're like, okay, this is the name. We're going to go with this name. It's easy, 2 syllables, fun, playful. And that's how we got Bumo.
I also thought to myself, just like, boom, like just
Yeah.
like, yeah, we got like, it's easy, So I really loved it. And I also love the graphics. And I really love, like you were mentioning earlier, the user interface to make it really easy for people to, like, it's like the Uber for childcare. It's like the open table for
Right.
childcare too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the easiest way to think about it. I know that's like sort of like a no way of explaining things, right? But it's just the easiest way to explain it. I mean, I know we should be the Bumo of childcare, but until we are, totally a household name and a verb, a noun, whatever you want to call it, yeah, I always refer to us as a Resi of childcare because it's parents just don't understand how easy it can be because we're so used to it being hard. And when you kind of draw that parallel and that analogy, it makes it easier for them to understand.
I can imagine just Boomo it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, totally.
Snow, mudslide. We've been having some mudslides here in LA.
Oh
Just
gosh,
Boomo.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I think one of the most important things that your company also offers is that it allows, women to continue to be in the workplace.
Totally.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, a lot of women couldn't return to the workforce because they didn't have childcare. That is a very known fact. Many days are missed from work because of childcare. You think about the life cycle of employment, you think about recruitment, retention, and advancement, and you fail at all those things when you don't have childcare. I mean, a study was just released by BCG and Moms First about the ROI on childcare, and it's significant. For those in the space, it's like, duh, did you really need a study to tell you that? But I think to get the ears and the eyeballs of the decision makers who unfortunately are not the target demographic, numbers and graphs are important. And so I'm so thankful that Moms First and BCG did that study because it got a lot of eyeballs. But yes, to recruit a new parent back into the workforce, having childcare is great. I can't tell you how many parents I've talked to who have limited their hours, picked a job because of the childcare, and then retention too. How many parents cut down their hours for work or, quit their jobs because they can't find adequate childcare and advancement, right? If the mental load again of childcare is so much, having a parent worry about that while trying to advance their careers, it's a lot and it inhibits women to grow, but having childcare allows them to do that. In fact, you mentioned I'm here at the space, and one of the moms, she just reminded me a week ago. She's like, Joan, I am so thankful for Bumo. And I was like, why? She's like, because she had a job at Disney and she had childcare, but she did not want that job at Disney anymore. She had another job that was so much better and advanced her career. But she's like, I can't leave this childcare that I have at Disney, which I love so much. But because she found childcare through Bumo, she was able to leave and really, advance her career. And so because childcare is a deciding factor, my sister just texted me yesterday. She's like, I scaled back all of my hours because I'm home with my 3 kids a lot. And she's a physician, she's a doctor, you know, and she's cutting back, her work because of lack of childcare with 3 children. And so it definitely impacts women and our ability to accelerate, and women, and also the on the other side of the coin, for companies to get really amazing talent, right? By not having childcare, and really amazing women who grow in their workforce by not having childcare. So it's definitely, I'm glad that there's a lot of noise, a lot of talk about childcare, because it's definitely something that employers really need to think about if they want to recruit, retain, and advance the female workforce.
So earlier you were talking about raising money, and now you're in this space, because you're celebrating Mother's Day or Mother's Day weekend. What is your day usually like
Oh my God,
today?
it's crazy. I wake up about 5:45, and our headquarters is in Century City now. So I drive to Century City. I get here about 6:20. I plug in and get all of my work done. I'm sorry, 6:45. It takes me an hour to get here. Sometimes 7:45 I'll get here. I just plug into work, get all of my stuff done here, meet with teams, and probably leave at 6:15. I get home at about 8 o'clock. And at that time, I'm, sitting having dinner as my kids are in pajamas, telling me about their day. So super late dinner. I put them to bed and I typically, our routine is watch a Netflix show with my husband. That's our time together. And then he sleeps really early. And then I I go back to work and I work again. Like last night I worked till like 12:45, and I woke up this morning at 5:45. And so it's a grind. I try to take one day to work from home so I could take the kids to school. So like Wednesdays are the days I also, have dinner with my mother-in-law every Wednesday. That's kind of our routine. But yeah, that's my day right now. It's kind of wild and kind of crazy, but I'm hoping that very soon my goal is to actually fire myself from many things that I do so that I can promote myself in the things that matter. And that includes being a mom.
That is true. We had Jeff Hoffman, the founder of Priceline, come in, and he said basically that's what he did. He basically hired someone else to be CEO. He came into a meeting, and he was asking, like, does, and also making sure that the team was healthy and happy. And he asked one of the team members, is there anything else that I can do for you? And one of the his engineers said, yeah, can you go pick up my laundry?
Oh
And he did. He
my
picked up his dry
God.
cleaning. He's like, and he's telling this story. I'm just like, wow, We brought him to Maui at an entrepreneur retreat. I'm just like,
Oh,
I
fun.
guess I think I would have probably delegated that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, but sometimes, little things that you do for team members too. I mean, laundry, that's a commitment, but it matters, right? I think to an extent. So I can see the value in that.
So you have a co-founder. A lot of times, when we speak with CEOs, they either are solo or they work with, many co-founders. What's it like having a co-founder?
Yeah, I mean, Chriselle's really like my cheerleader. So she's, I do day to day. Chriselle is brand. So architecting our brand is really, a lot of Chriselle's vision, and, community too. So she's always believed in something called the 3 C's: community and commerce and content, of course, given her background. And so that's something that she is really focused on and thinks through. But, having a co-founder, it's really emotional support. I can't remember how many times I've called her, in tears because something's been really hard. How many times we've flown to San Francisco or New York to pitch investors and flown home with like a bunch of no's or not yets. So I think having like that sort of co-founder is really important, because I was a solo founder before, and it was hard. Just having somebody to talk to is nice. I mean, I don't care about, doing the work and doing the heavy lifting, but also just having, somebody to talk through and strategize and soundboard is super helpful and
How did
complimentary. Yeah. So
and what?
And she's complimentary to me because I'm not, we're so different. I'm spreadsheets. She's like in front of the camera. So
Oh, yeah. Have you ever, I'm sure you use some type of business framework like the entrepreneur operating system, like EOS or anything like that.
Mhm.
So,
No,
do you?
no, not really. No, I don't use any sort of like, I guess like mainstream system or sort of like anything that is, yeah, no, I don't. Yeah.
So, entrepreneur operating system is a system that a lot of the entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast use, EOS. And what they talk about is like there's the visionary and there's the integrator. So, it seems like maybe, you could be both, but it seems like because you're the integrator, you're really getting yourself, in there in the day to day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I am all integration. So, and then
Yeah.
some vision, right? Just because I of course am the CEO, so you know, I I always like to say that I have to think through the vision and the vector of growth. And my job is to make sure that my team follows that vector of growth and that I have the team that can lead other team members to follow that vector of growth. And so there's that. Chrisella is like I'm like vision, business vision. She is like creative vision and like just vision, right? So I think that kind of goes really well together too, because it's like different levels and types of vision that we have, which is always nice to, for something like Bumo, because again, we're a childcare company and but we have the brand and we have this like kind of zing to it, and that definitely is Chriselle's vision.
How did you find a co-founder? There are a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't want to be solo anymore. Did you find your co-founder or how did that happen?
Yeah, so actually, funny story is I was actually not even part of Bumo. So my son was 3 months old. My friend Elijah knows Chriselle. I known Chriselle when I was like 19 too, but through another industry that we were in. And he invited me over and he said, Chriselle has this great idea. It's a co-working space with on-site childcare. Would love for you to come by. I was like, sure. So I came by with my son, 3 months old again, and she had this idea. She had two other folks helping her, stand it up. And I just became obsessed with the idea because I was in it and I kept on emailing her, giving her unsolicited advice, supporting. So I'd like to say I was a unpaid intern, overperforming, high performing, unpaid intern. And then eventually a few months later, she's like, you should just be a small part of the team. I mean, you're doing so much, like, get some equity. And then that's the one thing about Chriselle. She's an incredibly, insanely fair person. So she saw me and she's like, you should just have some slice of the pie. I was like, okay, fine. And then a year later, I think about finally she was like, okay, you know what? You should just be the CEO and like be the co-founder because at this point you're just like building it with me. And so that's how it happened. It was pretty fortuitous, honestly. Again, I had no business being in Bumo. I was already a founder of another company and thought that was the company that I was going to have for the rest of my life and it was going to be evergreen. But then Bumo came along and sometimes the things that you thought you were so passionate about, there's something that you are even more passionate about, and that was Bumo for me.
It was so interesting. Have you read Patrick Lee Neosi's book, The Motive?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's very similar. Like there was this one CEO who wanted to buy the company of another CEO, and he ended up giving the CEO position to the person he bought because he was just like he's there for the right reason. Like
Yeah.
he is there to be CEO, and the other guy was just like he not like they're checked out, but he was just like he's a much better fit than I am, and so that's exactly what happened. Yeah,
Yeah,
isn't that
yeah. I
cool?
mean,
Yeah.
and that's what Chriselle told me too. She's like, I think, you have the chops for this. Like I don't give up. I kind of a Jill of all trades. For an early startup can do a lot of different things. And I have a really strong work ethic. And so she was like, this is, probably going to be a better fit for you than for me. And she's, she knows her superpower, which is again, content and community. And that definitely has lent as well too.
Yeah, and I know I saw that you also have some celebrity investors. That's
Yeah, we
exciting.
do. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, we got really lucky. A lot of it was from, of course, Chriselle's network of a lot of amazing women and moms. So we have a lot of celebrity investors who really just care about the mission because at the end of the day, they're also mothers, they're also working mothers, and they understand this pain point very much. They've been so wonderful. Jessica Alba is an investor in us, Coco Rocha. We have, Rocky Barnes, Cara Lauren, a lot of, again, incredible women. I can't list them all because there's actually quite a bit of them who are ambassadors of Bumo, who care about what we're building. And that definitely has helped us a lot. They definitely wouldn't put their name on something that they didn't truly believe in. And so that was also another layer of validation too, to Bumo, to to our community and audience.
That's wonderful. So I'm trying a different thing. I have this
Uh-huh.
list of cards. It's called Let's Talk by
Uh-oh.
Intelligent Change.
Yeah.
And so I have a whole bunch of cards and I was wondering if you could pick one and we're going to ask the question to you. Just let me know which one you want me.
There, we can stop there.
This
Yeah.
one? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
All right. Let's see what you
Oh,
pick. Okay.
I'm sweating.
Oh no. Name one activity that always brings you joy.
Oh my. Tennis. I love playing tennis. That was a recent thing that I picked up in 2023. Tennis gives me a lot of joy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How often do you get a chance to play? You didn't add that to your daily habit.
Oh yeah. Well, so I played a lot and then I got injured in October. So had a really, really bad sprain. And so I'm picking it up again. So I had a bit of a hiatus, a few months, old age, and definitely things don't recover as quickly as I remembered it recovering when I was younger. But yeah, I love playing tennis. I would play 1 to 2 times a week. It was just learning something new is fun for me, and I'm not naturally an athletic person, so that was also challenging. But yeah, I love it.
Oh, see, you got some exercise in your busy schedule. Okay, let's do another one.
Okay, there,
This one? Okay.
sure.
All right. Ooh, as a child, what was your biggest dream and did it come true?
I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Did it. You did it.
Yeah.
Oh, so you knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah, I always loved.
even though your parents were not entrepreneurs. Yeah.
No, no, no. I remember when I was little, I can't remember how old I was, maybe 10. I told my uncle, he asked me, he's super smart. He's like PhD in engineering, like super duper smart. And he would ask me, like, so what do you want to do when you get older? I was like, I want to be a business person. I want to have my own business. And he was like, you're really young. Like, do you even know what it entails, like running a business? I was like, no, but that's what I want to do. And I'm really passionate about it. I remember saying that to him, and he's like, okay. And I was. I mean, when I was 10 years old, I remember collecting Beanie Babies and trying to sell them. That was my first pursuit. I remember doing a lot of weird things and trying to make money, like crushing like what is it? Top ramen in a bag and putting it in Ziploc bags and reselling them to friends as like a treat and so or a snack. Selling Seas candy again, that was entrepreneurial for me. A lot of the things I did were very much rooted in this like desire to just build something or do something different and like the transaction of like building something and then transacting with somebody else who found value in what you did. Yeah, that was always really, really exciting for me.
Did you have an example, like an uncle that was an entrepreneur, or you just saw it on TV, or it was just in
No,
it?
no, no. I mean, we grew up really, I mean, pretty poor. So, I mean, that uncle who's the youngest of that family, I think he was one of two people out of 10 aunts and uncles who actually went to college. And yeah, no entrepreneurs. It was just I would see things on TV. It was like very like for me it was like a very fantastical, right? Just like thinking through like people building things, and it was always exciting for me to read about entrepreneurs, and at that time, entrepreneurs were not as exciting. I feel like now
No,
like this
not
like
at all.
yeah to it. So
I remember when I think my mother-in-law found out that I was an entrepreneur, and she was just like, there's like journalists. No, no, she said there's whores.
Oh God.
I was like, street workers, journalists, and then entrepreneurs. And I'm like, okay. So you're absolutely right. Like it's like a thing to be an entrepreneur. Like people are proud to say that
Yeah,
they're an entrepreneur, but not back then. Like 100%.
no, not at all. I mean, yeah, I mean, my mom and dad still, I tell them, I'm like, oh, I did this. They're like, okay, you can stop now and just like relax and just pause. I'm like, no, like I'm just getting started. What are you talking about? So no, but I mean, it's fun and it's great. And yeah, I think when I was younger, it was just, yeah, the pursuit of building was fun for me.
Do you still have Mary Education?
Yeah, so interestingly, I ran MeriEducation for 2 years at the same time as running Bumo. So throughout that whole craziness with the pandemic, I was also MeriEducation actually had we did online, but we also had 4 physical centers. So while I was pivoting and doing online classes, I was also pivoting MeriEducation at the same time as CEOs of both companies. And so at a point, Bumo just absorbed MeriEducation. So MeriEducation exists in a very small form within the Bumo ecosystem. So it's still there. And that just helped me sort of like compartmentalize. I it was just too much of an endeavor during the craziness to think through acquisition or anything else. So that was just the easiest move at the time for us.
And now I've heard that colleges are going to be requiring SATs again. So that could be have a uptick in that service.
Yeah, maybe, but then, I think one of the biggest lessons I probably learned throughout this time as an entrepreneur is intense focus. And that's the anthem for this year and forward is intense focus. So the focus is Bumo as an on-demand childcare marketplace. Unfortunately, that segment of MeriEducation, test prep, and college admissions is a little bit now behind me. A lot of my students are great entrepreneurs now. One of my kids that I taught SAT just raised a $7.5 million seed round. So I'm really proud of him. I see a lot of them doing amazing things, and it's a moment in my life that I am proud of and I look fondly back to. But definitely right now, it's just this intense manic focus to build the most robust online marketplace for childcare.
And you're going to do it.
I'm going to do it. I'm
Yay.
totally going to do it.
What advice would you give to aspiring women entrepreneurs or any entrepreneur that's listening?
I guess a few things. One is, you know, women and then also parents, right? As ask for help. You're going to need the help, and you're not less of an entrepreneur, less of a parent if you have help. I learned that a little bit later. Starting Bumo, that I actually needed a lot of help, and so asking for help is really important. I would say asking for help too from other entrepreneurs. I have so many founders that I just text out of the blue to ask them a question, and so many people that I've learned from. And it's important too to put yourself out there. Put yourself out there, meet people, talk to people, engage with them, because each person is going to help you in some way. And for instance, one story is, I had an event that I was invited to and I went, and one of the investors who actually had said no to me, I actually sat next to her, maybe on purpose. And so sat next to her. And in the end, she said, wow, I got to really talk to you and meet you in person. And you are quite impressive, Joan. And let me know I'm coming into your round. And so, and I, didn't want to go actually. I'm like an introvert at heart, but, I went. And so just put yourself out there, meet people, liquid courage, self-talk, whatever you need to do, like to get yourself out there. But just talk to people because people will talk to you. And everybody knows somebody that will help you if they are not the person who will help you themselves. So I think that's something that I definitely learned throughout this journey. And we built a really robust network for Bumo by just talking to people and building those connections.
That is so exciting. Well, I hope that you join EO eventually. An entrepreneur organization is
Yes.
for entrepreneurs just like you. We have this thing called a forum where it's our board of directors, and every month we just ask for help from our group, rather than having to
Yeah.
explain everything. And what's good about EO and the forum is that they know everything, not just the business side of it, they also know what's happening personally so that they can really share experiences. We never give advice, we share experiences that happen to us that can help you because no one ever wants to be told what to do, right? We're type
Yeah,
A.
yeah, totally. No, I
Yeah, yeah.
love that. I mean, I'm all about community and, community is so important to me and having an entrepreneurial community that's actually, intentional is honestly wonderful.
That is so exciting. Well, thank you so much for being part of the EO Wonder podcast. And I look forward to hearing more about your successes, your secret stuff that's happening. Maybe we can update the show notes later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kalika, for having me.
Of
And it was
course.
so wonderful to talk to you and, share, everything about Bumo with your audience. So I'm excited to be able to have this opportunity.
And how can people find you?
Yeah, so you could find me on Instagram. Love to, again, chronic overshare. So my Instagram handle is Joan or you can email me, joan@bumo.com. Find me on LinkedIn. I think it's also Joan Bumo. But yeah, Instagram is funny videos of my kids. You'll see timestamp photos of me working late at night with a glass of wine. Like last night, I think I took a photo of my laptop with a glass of wine and random recipes as I am aspiring amateur cook.
Oh, that is so great. I'm
Mhm.
part of the mayor's AAPI task force, and we're doing Smorgasburg on May 19th, all AAPI at Smorgasburg, downtown LA.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah.
I'll come by.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's happening. So
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
yes.
smorgasbord.
Yes, I'm coming. I'm
Yeah.
coming.
Okay, good, good, good. And we also, I mean, separately, wait, let's conclude this. Thank you so much. It's so great for you to be with us. And thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. You're such a wise entrepreneur, and thank you so much for contributing to our community of entrepreneurs.
Thank you for having me.